There are approximately a dozen possible explanations as to why my wife might have been crying hysterically for about an hour in the bathroom. In ascending order of significance, these are some of the things that made her weep uncontrollably. World hunger, accidentally skipping breakfast, missing a sale at Barney's, not enough women on the Supreme Court, noticing a new frown line, political persecution in far-off lands, thinking she's not as pretty as her sister, the subway, and anything having to do with me. My guess is that this cheer binge was primarily driven by the last option. But you never know. Once, while we were staying at the Four Seasons Resort at Punta Mita, Mexico, she wouldn't leave the room for 2 days because she didn't want anyone to see the bags under her eyes that were a direct result of her sobbing about the possibility that she might have bags under her eyes. On the night in question, however, I just knew that this was all my fault. That I was the bags under her eyes. There was a familiarity to this wailing that I had dealt with many times in the past. I was getting the same vibe that I used to get when I'd forget about meaningless pseudo-anniversaries, or when I didn't introduce her quickly enough to people at the office Christmas party. As I lay in bed, desperately trying to pretend that not only was I still asleep, but I was so deeply asleep that even loud caterwauling couldn't possibly wake me up. I racked my brain, trying to remember what I possibly could have done wrong. And my checklist was pretty slim. I never cheated on her. I never hit her. I was nice to her family. I paid for all of her stuff. When you get right down to it, what else is a decent husband supposed to do? Correct answer to that question is not much. How to answer that question? A lot. I discovered this when she finally called my sleep bluff by storming out of the bathroom and making a caustic remark about my testicles. I believe that the exact phrase was, "You've got some kind of balls." At that point, I felt that not even the greatest actor of our time could have pulled off the fake sleep gambit any longer. So I sat up in bed and I asked, well, what's the matter? As it turned out, my initial instincts were correct. I was the matter. Somehow, I was responsible for the myriad of sadness in her life. I was indifferent to world hunger and political persecution. I wasn't enthusiastic enough in my support of women's rights. I made her ride the subway too often. I looked at her sister's ass on Thanksgiving. The floodgates burst open, and I was drowning in my own massive culpability. In my defense, I should point out that if I did look at her sister's ass at Thanksgiving, it was only to marvel at the staggering effects of bulimia. I swear, that woman can't weigh more than 100 pounds. There was never any lust in that glance. I felt sorry for her. I was mystified by her feelings of inadequacy. She's a smart, pretty lady. How come she never eats? As for the subway thing, I have to plead guilty there. I knew she hated the subway, and I knew she resented me every time I made her go down there. But if marriage is all about compromise, then why was I the only one compromising all the time? If a Guarneri string quartet were playing at Avery Fisher Hall on Sunday at the exact same time as the Super Bowl, guess where I spent my afternoon? Exactly. Beethoven won, football, and sure, I DVR'd it, but it's not the same. Sports are like sweet shrimp. They're meant to be enjoyed live. I really felt like I gave more than my fair share in the relationship. But my wife had absolutely no interest in breaking down my emotional mathematics. The only thing she wanted to break down was me. She had come to a powerful realization while she wept onto the porcelain. And it wasn't that we were out of toilet paper. My wife wanted a divorce. Although, we were out of toilet paper. Which was probably my fault. Bathroom. I'm gonna leave this here.